Hello, Beth.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. So nice to be here.
Yeah, very nice to have you. I have to say I was really exciting when we were preparing for this session because, well, let's start with who you are. You're Beth Clay.
Yeah.
And you're the founder and director of Creative Clay.
Yes.
And you are a personal branding expert.
Yes.
And I have to say I have seen you in action at law firms, working with lawyers. And all of the wisdom and knowledge and advice that you could provide to lawyers, I have seen that actually influencing the way they were presenting themselves. And some of them have really built their confidence after they've done a few coaching sessions with you. So yeah, it was really, really good to, when you accepted to be on this podcast, I think that a lot of BD and marketing professionals will be interested in hearing what you have to say.
Thank you.
Because I think, you know, there is an expectation in professional services that the work that you do, the deliverables, so when you're a lawyer or a BD and marketing professional, whatever you will be doing is just enough. You know?
Yeah.
And this is how you're going to be selling your services, basically. But I don't think it's the case. And I think that personal branding is taking an increasing place in the way we do things and we market ourselves, especially at law firms. So yeah, so I really was interested in having this conversation with you. And I want to hear more about, you know, what you think personal branding is, what it is in reality, and yeah, your take on it, really. So yeah, thank you.
Amazing. Thanks. No, thanks for having me here. So I guess I can give you a bit of background about myself. I mean, I think there's, like you said, there's a lot of issues there that we can unpack and go into quite a lot of detail around personal branding, but probably just to give a bit of context about where I've come from and why I talk a lot quite passionately about personal brand. So my background predominantly has been in communications. I used to work for the UK government for, it was about 13, 14 years. Worked with many previous and former prime ministers, different ministers, different departments, huge big public awareness campaigns, and very much a lot of the work that I was involved with was kind of very much building brands, whether they were a campaign as such or whether they were the brands inadvertently of the ministers and the people that we worked with, and then gone through and worked with one of the biggest PR agencies in the region, in the world as well, working with a lot of CEOs and their leadership teams to build their brands and build the visibility of the company as well. But the area that really, you know, alongside this, I've carved out a space for myself in a very different area, one that you will have seen me and known me for as well, which a lot of people across my platforms know me on the area that I do around financial wellness. So it's very different and distinct from my background or where I am, but I very much wanted to carve out that space where I saw the huge need and a gap within that area. I'm not going to go into loads of detail about finance. This is not a financial podcast, but what I have learned, and very much the reason why I come in when I talk to the lawyers, like you said before, and actually go and talk to lots of people, is I know the importance of building out a brand and a name for yourself and being known and having an authority. Okay, so that's what really, really is really important, because in this day and age, if you're not visible, you're invisible, and people need to know you for your insights and your worth and what you are standing for. And for me, my huge passion, alongside obviously all my experience in communications, was educating people and ensuring they had an understanding and a strong relationship with money. And so I set out that and wanted to make a name for myself around that area, very much talking on lots of different platforms, podcasts, radio, TV, and got known for that area. And that's Beth Clay. She's known for financial wellness. We need to get her on the show, you know. And now I have people outreach me. I don't do the outreach myself. I do, people come to me and say, can you be on my program? Can you be on my show? We need your insights. You are an authority in that field. And that's very much, obviously I still continue the work I do on financial wellness, but I work very much, like you said, consulting firms through to founders, quite big business people, all in many different industries, about the importance of building their personal brand and what they want to be known for. So that gives you that kind of context about where I kind of operate in. So very much kind of manage both areas. But yeah, I do feel really passionate. And going back to the point that you mentioned there about, before, being very good at our job and doing a very good job felt enough. But we're no longer in that area. And when we put that context into the fact that AI, and as we know, everybody's talking about it, it's the main thing. AI is replacing so many different areas of the way that we do business, and what people are looking for is that human element, the human side of who the people are behind the brand. And so much of the content that we can see is obviously, a lot of it is AI generated to some degree, but actually, how do we stand apart? How do we be known for something that we can be that go-to person, so that we're not just, oh, that's a company, but actually people want to work with people. They want to work with individuals that they resonate with, that they understand, and that believe them and understand them. And that's where that makes that next step and that edge and that difference is, particularly in your field, in business development and marketing and in the legal space is, that's what's going to set you apart, is being something that's known. You are a subject matter expert. You are an authority. And there's a lot of ways in which we can talk about to kind of get there. But that is what's really going to be so important, and being memorable. That's what you need to be in this day and age. Not memorable. Yes, you did a great job at solving that client's case, but where else are you? What do you feel so passionately about?
Yeah, I hear you. And I feel that, for a long time, brands and law firm brands in particular were carrying all the weight of, the expertise of the firm. It was telling a lot about what the lawyers could deliver in terms of work, but also it was carrying the weight of the credibility of the firm, the seriousness, and many other aspects. And now I feel that we have so many touch points because our lives have become increasingly digital.
Yes.
That we have more ways of telling, what the firm can do. And I feel that personal branding can really add to the law firm brands, and often can go beyond what the brand can say about the firm. And I wanted to ask you, can you tell us a little bit about all the areas that personal brands touch?
Yeah, exactly. So you're totally right there. So I think that element of, for so long, and as we talked in many of the sessions, is that we've kind of worked behind the brand, and we feel that affiliation with the company name, and that felt good enough to do that. But as I said, it's more, as things are digital, as people are looking at many different resources to find out about the firm, the people who work there, we need to be more visible. And the partners and the people who work within that company need to be known for a particular area. So an opportunity to kind of carve out a niche for themselves and be known in that particular area. But yeah, in terms of touch points, we're very much thinking of anything from LinkedIn through to the panels that you sit in, through to the networking. Your presence is now online and offline. So much business is done, through networking events, through those panel opportunities, through the forums, but also where people are searching for you. Okay, so people are they're looking on Instagram, they're looking on LinkedIn, they're looking on Twitter, they're looking on all these different channels, and it's not just your website. Even now, and going back to more increasingly, people are going to be using ChatGPT to search for stuff, right? Like, we are moving towards that, moving away from searching on Google. So what ChatGPT is looking at, as Google has been, is scouring the internet to find out where can I present those, those people, the voices behind the brand, and those are going to be the things that are going to be searchable and up there in the high results. So there's a lot more that we need to be thinking about and doing and saying. It cannot just sit on a single platform, which may have been the website before. And yes, you've got your nice bios, but people are looking for you everywhere and all different forums. So I think it's about making sure that you have a strong presence offline and online. And obviously, when you're thinking about your own individual personal brand, and as a business development or marketing specialist, you too need to own your own brands, as well as obviously the lawyers as well, because that's going to be really important. Because, as you say, the first thing people are going to do when they're searching you is, what are they saying? What do they stand for? What have they written? Where, all the different things that they are. Where have they been presented before? Like, can I see them in action? Have they been on a podcast? How do they come across? All those different areas they want to see. It's not just hiding behind a photo on a website anymore. It's seeing you in action. How do you talk to people? How do you talk to clients? How would you talk to me? That's really important. That's what people want to understand, especially being a lawyer and a partner in a firm. How will you talk to me?
Yeah, absolutely. And because this is a people's business, right? So even people, before people hire you, before a GC will reach out to a lawyer, they want to kind of sense who they are, their personality a little bit. And it's true that the number one place to go and find this information will be LinkedIn. This is the perfect space where you will find service providers and clients.
Yeah.
Really interesting. And when we talk about personal branding, I've had conversations with lawyers where they're a little bit reluctant in looking into that space because what they think is, oh, I need to be on LinkedIn and I need to start telling people about how I feel and how my weekend relates to, something about work, and they just either feel shy or don't really want to do that. Yeah. And I was wondering if you have an approach for this, or what do you tell people? What do you tell lawyers who will be saying this to you?
Yeah, so when we've gone through this, and I know there's a lot of people, and I get it with my own clients as well, that hesitation to kind of like, oh, do we really have to put stuff out on LinkedIn? Like, it feels a bit cringe. Like, I really don't want to be doing it. Do I have to tell them about my weekend? But actually, there's thinking about, you have your insights on something, okay? So everything, you can keep it work related, but it needs to be relatable. That's what I always say. And it's really important to kind of think about, what is my speciality? What do I specialize in? What do I feel passionate about? What area of work do I feel passionate about that I'm doing? And what can I share insights-wise that others are going to find interesting, okay? So sometimes it's news articles that you might have read about something in your, let's say, call it taxation or whatever. There's something really, a new rule that's come out, and what's your thoughts on it? Provide your thoughts and your insights. What impact is that going to have for people in that field? That's what people are going to be interested in. What impact is that, a new law that's come in going to be on your clients? Provide those insights. You can do it because you do it all the time. You do it you would do it personally to your clients and the people that you're working with. Tell the world, tell them about it. People can learn from you, and people can see you and position. Oh, I understand them. They've got such strong insights on taxation in the industry, on their region. There's someone to follow. They are an authority in that field because they're talking about it. They've been open about it. Yes, let's not make it boring. Let's give the, relevant, like, make it relatable. Bring out the human insight. Tell a story about how that might impact Joe from X firm. So people can visualize it, people can sense it. And that's what I always talk about, humanizing the story, so that it's not just, oh, great, there's a new rule that's just come in. And what does it mean? Yeah. Spell the bean, like, what does it mean? Like, and maybe sometimes that's putting up, what I do often find is things like carousels. I know it seems like getting into more content development, but like, break it down. If there's a new term, new law that's come out, like, visualize it, help people see what it actually implies. People love that sort of content. They really relate to it. And so, like, photos of you, like, people are like, oh, I don't want to put a photo of myself. Well, yeah, people need to visualize a person who's writing their story. They need to relate to that person. So if it's you, like, in a work environment or meeting people or whatever it is, like, just let people see you. Let people see the person behind the name, like the brand, that sort of thing. And so they can relate to you and you feel accessible, that you are not just a robot that I talked about, that AI generating, some behind the scenes. That's what's going to set you apart. And as I said, there's so many different ways. And I talked about on LinkedIn as well. And when I do a lot of the sessions, we talk about having content pillars. So thinking about all the different areas, and that could be your life experience, like, your work experience, where you've come from, the background that you've talked about. If you think people find it interesting, they most likely will. Every single one of us have a story to tell and a journey that we've been on. I think often the challenge that we face, and I know the sessions we've talked about, is, am I going to get in trouble for talking about this? Yeah. And I think that's something that obviously will come up time and time again. But obviously, it's always, important to just talk to you. I'm thinking about giving these insights on LinkedIn. Happy to run it past you if that works. But I just think it would be really great to elevate our image, elevate what we are doing. And actually, 9 times out of 10, a lot of companies will allow you to do that because it's better for them. It is better in the long term for the firm to have strong people, that they are visible and they are seen and out there.
I really like what you're saying, because you're talking about, building your credibility, I think being authentic as well.
Yeah.
So working around those content pillars so that you feel comfortable in what you're projecting through your LinkedIn profile or other medium that you would be using. And I like what you said about being approachable.
Yeah.
And it's true that it's a people's business. So you will not be working as a GC or as a brand or as a professional who needs a lawyer. You will not be working with a law firm brand. You will be working with other human beings, with people who have an expertise, who have thoughts and who have a take on the new regulations and how they can help you in your business. And you want to make sure that those lawyers can really understand your problems. And they're going to help you achieve your ambition as a professional, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're a GC at a very large company. So it's really important for a lawyer to be able to convey those messages.
Absolutely.
Because it's going to resonate with someone.
Yeah.
So that's really, really important. And I think that kind of, this is a nice segue into my next question for you, which is, do you see a real connection about people who have a strong personal brand and the opportunities that this creates or that come to them?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'll take myself as an example. I've mentioned there earlier about, building up that credibility and talking around financial wellness and the importance of, financial literacy and all those, and being quite public and open about it. And the opportunities have come. Mm-hmm. They've got me in the rooms that I've, wanting to go, and they've got me into huge, big corporate areas, been on stages, talking about all those different things because I have developed an authority in that field. Yeah. And it's the same advice I give to lawyers and to anybody else thinking about should they develop their personal brand. What is the point of, what is the whole point about talking about this on LinkedIn and being more out there myself? Yes, the opportunities come and you get the bigger cases. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You are going to get those bigger cases because people recognize you, and then those opportunities come. The more that you talk about it on LinkedIn, the more that you put yourself and develop an authority and make yourself be that subject matter expert, the radio are going to come to you. The amount of times that the radio, they are looking for those opportunities to get you on, Dubai, and all those different radio stations, they need that credibility. They need the people who stand for something in that field.
It's true, yeah.
And I look at lawyers who have been quite open on LinkedIn, and I've literally seen them the next minute they're on the radio talking about it.
Yeah.
Or they're on TV, or they've been asked for insights in newspapers or magazines, like all those different things. Because the more that people can say, they've got a really strong field, like they're talking about this, and I actually want their point of view here. And yes, whether it's bigger cases, whether it's bigger platforms, the panels, you can develop so much. And then the promotion opportunities, obviously, that come up wherever you are, and whether you're moving to a different firm or whatever, people will want to understand who you are as a person and what authority you've built in that area.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you are just merely a taxation lawyer. You are just in that area,
Yeah, absolutely.
Amongst hundreds of others.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I hear you. And it's really interesting what you're saying. And I find that, earlier in my career, someone had mentioned to me like, oh yeah, it's really nice to work with you, and you're very approachable, and you come across as very serious about this and very good about that, etc. And that made me realize that although at the time we were not really talking about personal branding, well, whether you put an intention behind your own personal brand or not, you do carry a personal brand.
Yes.
And it's something that people often don't realize.
Yeah.
Whether you do something about it or you don't, you do have a personal brand.
Yeah.
That's what you were mentioning earlier, right? When you were saying like, you don't necessarily exist in that space, or, people will see you as merely like one tax lawyer among all of the tax lawyers in the UK or in France or in the US. But it's really interesting. And about that, so we've talked a lot about like lawyers and how it's important for them to sell their expertise and build that credibility. And us as BDN marketing professionals, we spend a lot of time advising them on how to build their personal brand. But often we forget our own personal brand internally and how this can influence also our careers. Yeah. And although, on LinkedIn, I might not necessarily always be promoting the lawyers individually, I also want to be talking about myself, my areas of expertise, etc. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about, when you're not at the center of the services that your company provides, how can you continue to develop your personal brand so that it can help you internally and externally?
Yeah, so absolutely. I think every single one of us, and go back to the point, every single one of us has a brand, and we are known for something. So it's about being more visible and talking about it, and all those different areas because we all have our passions, we have our areas of speciality that we can talk about. And sometimes it often holds us back because we think, well, they find it interesting. I don't think I've got anything. But you've got to this place, right? You have got to this place in your career where you are because somebody and many people along the way have believed in you and what you stand for. Okay. So it's very much about thinking, yes, I can still do the work, and yes, I'm still supporting and advising in the firm, but I can also give out to the area, other people in the marketing industry, other people in the legal industry. I can talk about my insights and what I've learned, talk about across, I think often we think that if we're employed we've got our own employer, we shouldn't really be talking about LinkedIn. Perhaps that's more for people who are, in different areas, or entrepreneurs, or this, that, and the other. No, we can still share insights. Mm-hmm. We can still learn from each other. So you can talk about your stories, your journey, where you've come from, help others who are starting out. Perhaps there's many people who are starting out in the marketing industry who don't know what they should do, or don't know how to approach clients, don't know where they should be focusing on. And you can say, for anyone who's just starting out in this is what I've learned. Here are 5 lessons I've learned about this, and this.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is what has got me from this job to this job. Yeah. Because when I took that opportunity, this happened, and those stories along the way, when I was able to advise clients on doing this, I noticed such a huge change, and There's so many stories that you can talk about, your experiences and your insights and your passions. Mm-hmm. Even little things like, what do you do outside of work? I mean, we talked about, it doesn't, not everybody is interested in what you did at the weekend, but, perhaps you've got a hobby,
It's true.
Perhaps there's something that I know, like Barbara loves sailing, like those sort of things. I know she talks about that, doesn't she, on LinkedIn quite a lot. But people will be inspired by all different areas of your life. So as I said, for me, I talk about personal branding, I talk about financial wellness. Couldn't be any more different, but some people are interested in that, some people are interested in the other side.
I so agree. Yeah, and I remember that. So some of the posts that I have published on LinkedIn and that had the most success were posts around my personal passion. So I'm a mountain climber, for example, and I remember posting about this, and people would come to me and say oh yeah, I'm also a mountain climber. And it's really interesting because you will remember those people. So you're creating that memorable touch point with people.
And it's so true. It's a really important point as well, because you'll walk into a room and someone will be like, oh, you're the mountain climber. Mm-hmm. Like, you're a mountaineer, or you're into sailing. I am too. And it's that, exactly like you said, it's forming that area of connection, that connection that doesn't have to be work related, obviously everybody's in the same, perhaps we're in a room where everyone's in the same industry, but they've got that connection. You've made that connection with that person, and that connection can lead to something else. That connection can will ultimately lead to wider opportunities, more collaborations, whatever it is. But yes, it's finding that common ground. And I think that's really, really important. I remember a really close friend of mine actually reached out to me, and I think I talked about being from Yorkshire in the UK. So I made a thing about, because I feel a lot of people from Yorkshire are very, they bang on about the fact they're from Yorkshire, very proud, that's the word. And she reached out, she's like, oh my gosh, I'm also from Yorkshire, but similar sort of field. And we struck up, connections, conversations over LinkedIn, and that led to a really strong friendship. And now she's one of my closest friends, and this from not even meeting each other in person, but just having that common ground sometimes. And we've really helped each other out, from a business perspective as well. And it's just funny, isn't it, the things that you'll find and you'll think, well, nobody's interested in mountain climbing, but I'll maybe talk about it. But there'll be people fascinating. They want to know, what did you get it? Have you been to that country? Have you been to that? Or what did you find about that? And it's so important, because that's where we go beyond that, and getting that human connection, that part where you're finding that common ground that sets you, and it's the same thing, going off on a tangent, but when I go to a lot of networking opportunities, sometimes some of the events I go to are quite kind of structured, and people say, right, before you talk about work, I don't want you to talk about what you do as your job or your business. I want you to talk about your passions so that you can find connections with somebody at this table will feel the same way as you about that particular area. So I think it's a really good way to approach it, because ultimately, before you've even told me what you do, I know who you like. We both have something in common.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find that interestingly, you will pay more attention to what people have to say when there is that personal connection with them already. So, when you see someone on LinkedIn posting about something related to BD and marketing, or anything actually about their company, well, if I have seen another post in the past about something personal that, was memorable for me, I will just pay more attention to what they have to say now.
Absolutely.
So yes, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
That's great. And I think that also that also means that your personal brand is not just one element. It's not just that one post or that one hobby. It's a lot of different things, right?
Absolutely.
It's about what you like, but it's also your take on how your subject matter, your area of expertise, and many other things. So can you tell us what you think it encompasses, really, like the different areas, personally, your expertise and other things?
Yeah, I think we touched on quite a bit. But yeah, I think it's about almost like putting it into kind of like content pillars almost, like thinking about all the areas that you can think about in your life. But yeah, very much from your journey. So where you've come from, your career, where you've got to, your life experiences, very much talking about the stories along the way, the lessons you've learned. So that's really, really fascinating, because a lot of people are really bought into you and what's made you now, and where you've come from and where you've been. It's particularly when I see a lot of the ways that on LinkedIn in particular, the stories that really perform, those heartfelt, resilient moments when you've overcome, challenges in your life or things that have set you apart, set you back, because life isn't always positive, and people just think, oh gosh, they just must have flown to that career. No, they've gone through so many different hurdles, and people want to understand that. And that's what makes you you, and that's what sets you apart. Is you might not have had, a career that's just gone straightforward, a linear career, so to speak. There might have been many different areas you've ended up working in, different areas that have meant that you've got to this position because of that. People are interested in that. So thinking about your life experiences, and then thinking about your insights. Okay, so like where you are now, like what is your subject matter area of expertise? So whether that could be like marketing or an area of law, what are the insights, that the areas that you talk about and you work in, and talk about those in particular. You are the subject matter expert in that. You work day in, day out. You've trained in that field. People are fascinated to understand what it is that you do in that area, and what insights and point of view can you provide in that particular space. And then what people are fascinated is a day in the life of you. So almost thinking about a day in the life of Jeanne-Sophie or Beth, what does it look like? Help me visualize it. Take me on that journey.
Okay.
And then there's the outside interests, like we talked about there. What do you love that's beyond work? Tell me about that. What do you feel really passionately about? Sometimes people are quite open. Like I'm quite open about my personal life, and very much like the causes that I support and things like that. But you don't have to be that open if there's things that you don't necessarily want to talk about. But let people into a window into your life. Let them really see what's behind you, what makes you tick, what are your passions. You get asked that at job interviews all the time. People want to understand, yes, you're great at what you're doing, but who are you outside of work?
And why do you do what you do as well? If they want to understand your why, right? You were saying about a day in the life of Jeanne-Sophie. Well, I can tell you that I spend a lot of time with my dog and my cat. So everyone is welcome to come and meet them. That's really good. I wanted to ask you, so for someone who has never put any intention behind, their personal brand, where do they start? What do they need to do?
So I think it's about sitting down and thinking, right, what is my niche? What can I be known for? What do I want to be known for? Okay. So really thinking about what feels good for me, what feels aligned. Okay. So that sometimes takes a bit of kind of like, okay, well, I'm really passionate about this particular area or field of law or whatever it is, or whether you're in the marketing space, or what is it, that I really want to talk about more? What do I feel like I could just get on a stage tomorrow and talk about? Or I could be in a podcast and I could talk all day about. Think about those particular areas, because that's most likely where you're going to be able to think about. So what is it that you in general will want to do? And that could change, right? For me, I talk about, I've got 2 areas. I talk about financial wellness, I talk about personal branding. But find 1 or 2 areas that you want to be known for. Yeah. And then think about, what are the platforms that I want to be talking about? So the importance is consistency. So thinking about, you're not just going to do it tomorrow and then not sit on it for a few months. What is something I can show up consistently every week, every month, and talk about this particular area? And all the different content areas, but one area in particular. And then think about all the other elements of my life. But really formulate. Once you dig into that area of speciality, there'll be different content pillars that sit within that. Okay, so you will want to share the insights on a daily, or it could be a daily or weekly basis. You could share examples of people who've doing it really successfully, where you've seen other things, like lots of different areas. You can map that out and really thinking about what it is I want to talk about, what sits within that field. Where can I show up? This is the next part. Okay, so what are the platforms? So for some people, they feel more confident on Instagram. They feel more confident on LinkedIn. Try and find 1 or 2, ideally 2 platforms that you feel, and it's not saying that you need to go on TikTok and do some weird dancing like everyone knows.
I would love to see that. Lawyers starting dancing on TikTok.
But I think sometimes people are a bit like, I need to be on social media, and they go straight to the weirdo TikTok dances. No.
Well, I think I have an advice for this. I think you need to go to the platforms where you are likely to meet your audience, right? So
exactly.
If your clients aren't likely to be using TikTok, then perhaps drop this for now. Yeah,
you're totally right. I think that's the kind of point I was going to say. But with where you feel comfortable showing up and where your audience ultimately are, and most likely that's probably going to be ultimately LinkedIn. But for a lot of people now, they are searching for stuff on Instagram. We are seeing more people going to Instagram for business research as well. So and insights again, and that's another platform, because it goes back to the point that I was saying as well is. Often people, it's the confidence piece as well, okay, with personal branding. And that is often the biggest hurdle, okay? So, yes, I can write a post. I might be quite good at writing a post. I perhaps can get that out there. But actually, the next part is talking to camera, being on a stage, being on some, and actually that's what is going to set you apart, so that people understand how the look and feel and that relatability, so they can, as I went back to, is they can understand how you're going to talk to them as a person. Yeah. But that does sometimes take that extra bit of confidence to be able to be like, oh gosh, the amount of times when I speak to people and they're like, I can't go on a podcast, I couldn't possibly do that. But you can. It takes training, practice, of course it does. But actually, you being visible and people understanding how you come across is going to help build your brand so much more, because they're going to be like, great, I know how they talk and how they speak and how they come across and how they carry themselves. I want them on that stage. I want them on the next thing. I want them in my company, Yeah. So I think it's about very much, where are the platforms you feel comfortable talking about, and thinking about a variety of content that you want to put out there. As I said, posts, creating carousels, but also thinking about approaching people to be on their podcast. Yeah. I've got a great story to tell about this. And it might not necessarily be a marketing podcast or a legal podcast, but it could be something that you'll say, let's say you're, again, I'll come back to the example of being a taxation lawyer, but you might find there's a big entrepreneur podcast. Do you know what? I've got something to say on that podcast that will help your listeners. Yeah. They're going to need to listen to this. Yeah. So it's about thinking about outside the box. What are the podcasts and platforms I can show up? Because the good thing is when you start we can do a podcast today, our podcast today, you can cut that up into lots of different segments. So that's the beauty of often doing a podcast is, yes, people will be listening and they'll be watching on YouTube, but you can use some of those sound bites and the content for your platform that kind of, there's so many different ways when you can cut up some, say in podcasts in general, and you can get all the footage that will carry across different platforms. There's many different ways which you can use and be quite strategic with the content you put out there and the places that you to show up. Yeah. There's so many, I'm part of a podcast community, and there's so many people every day. I'm constantly saying, oh, anyone recommend a good guest for this? Anyone recommend somebody who could be on my show to talk about that? Take those opportunities, take those platforms, be in those different spaces. As I said, find something that you feel really passionate about. And, if it's writing about your expertise in those different areas, map out all the different things that you want to talk about on a weekly, perhaps sometimes, every other day. It doesn't have to be consistent, because sometimes it feels like that extra piece of work that we need to do. But even it's like perhaps weekly or a couple of times a week, think about, where can I show up? Where do my audience exist? And then formulate the content around that. And sometimes it may be that, you can start one day a month, batch a load of content and think about, okay, I'm going to approach all these different places. I'm going to talk about that. This has been really interesting. And as I say, it kind of grows from there. So there's many different ways in which you can slice your content up and where the different platforms. But choose the ones, as I say, start out by choosing the ones that feel comfortable to you, or the platform that feels comfortable to you. Don't need to be everywhere. Yeah. Because ultimately, A, your audience isn't everywhere, and B, it's going to feel too much and too much of a headache perhaps to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is something you mentioned earlier that I think was very true. It doesn't happen overnight.
No.
And this is where the consistency part comes in, right? And you don't have to do it every day, as you rightly mentioned. Just find your own rhythm. But also be very much aware that no one has built their personal brand or a strong presence online overnight.
No.
Which means that the first few times you're going to be posting, you're going to feel uncomfortable.
Yes.
It's going to take you out of your comfort zone, right?
Yeah. And you might get a couple of likes and you're like, oh gosh.
Exactly. What am I doing? This is cringe. I'm not getting the attention I thought I would be getting.
Yeah.
But you need to also put in the effort, put in the work to start seeing some results.
So true. And it's so true. And the more you get familiar with it, and it might be that, like you say, you put out a post and you get more likes and you suddenly get that confidence boost of, wow, this is resonating with people. Oh, great. Okay, let me think about more. People are interested in this area. I can talk about this more. Let me think about new ways in which I can talk about it, And like you say, it's often for all of us, every single one of us when we start out, is testing it. What works, what doesn't work.
Exactly.
People aren't judging you. And the thing that holds a lot of people back is that judgment piece.
Yeah.
What will they think? Oh gosh, they're going to judge me for being that. When I first started talking about money, which was very different remit, obviously, I said, from where I kind of came from, of course I had the fear, they're going to judge me. Family and friends, what are you doing talking about that? Nobody talks about money. It's very cringe, but you just have to be like, do you know what? I know this feels right to me. This feels aligned, and I know people want to listen to it.
Yes.
And I think having that belief in what you stand for and what you feel passionate about will get you there.
Yeah.
And I think it just takes time, and it'll be different ways of writing it, different styles, different ways of communicating, different content things. The more you try it, the more that people will be like, yeah, hats off to them. Yeah. Because the reality is, there's so many people, as I said, who hold back and hide behind the name and the brand, and are just watching. And they want to be doing what you're doing, but they're too scared to take that step.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I like what you mentioned about being niche in what you say as well. You don't have to put out content that will work for everybody.
Yeah.
No, think about what you know really well and talk about it. Think about your perspective and how it can be interesting for other people. You don't have to ensure that everybody will like your post or everybody will find interest in it. No, talk about something that is very relevant to a small group of people, and that's absolutely fine because it's aligned to your area of expertise and you know that subject really, really well. So yeah, that's really, really important. That's so interesting. So all of those things we can talk about, those content pillars, and thanks for unpacking this and being very precise and descriptive about this. You touched on AI earlier, and it's so easy now to just, go and write a prompt on ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to come up with a nice story, a nice comment, a nice post.
Yeah.
But then there's this thing now where literally all posts on LinkedIn sound the same.
They do, yeah.
The same tone of voice, same wording.
Yes.
And often just the same content, even with no personal take or no different angle. What's your take on this? What's your advice on AI?
I mean, I think you're totally right. I think that, as we know, AI can help so much, and it speeds up so much. And anything from obviously systems, the way that we work, it has huge benefits, but you're totally right in the sense that what we are finding is we have seen, particularly on LinkedIn, a huge amount of content that people have just literally taken to ChatGPT, write me a post about this, and it doesn't sound like them because it's very generic, like you said. I think it's about trying to take a step back and actually thinking about, and you can work with AI, of course, so you can train it with your tone of voice and you can train it with ideas, but try and write it from the heart. Write it from the heart of, what would I be saying to myself in the mirror? What would I say to a client? And write that down. And do you know what? Sometimes you might want to run it past ChatGPT to get the grammatical sense. That might speed up things rather than you re-looking at it. Try as much as possible to put it in your own words. Yeah. In your own words. Because actually these days, that's going to come across better. And like LinkedIn are now sort of sifting out the stuff that does sound too ChatGPT. So it's not going to be worth it if you just, write this about this, Actually think about, for me, I get a lot of, it's interesting, going off topic again, but I get a lot of ideas when I'm like running or at the gym and things like that. And I'm like, I visualize what the LinkedIn post would look like almost in my mind. And I come back and I write it as quickly as I can. And then sometimes I have to obviously grammatically can I just check I've done the right line there? But yeah, generally it's come from exactly how I visualize how the LinkedIn post would look and feel, and the hook and the way that I could talk about it. Because that's the thing, when it comes from your passion inside, just write it down,
Absolutely.
Write it down. And then if you do have to obviously check the grammatic or whatever, that's fine. But really, as much as you can, get it to feel like how you would write it, speaking to somebody, or how you would brief it to a client,
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I have to say that I think if people notice that it's a ChatGPT generated post, it can create a bit more damage.
Yes.
Then you can actually connect with your audience. So yeah, I agree. Thank you so much, Beth. I feel like we could be talking about this all day.
I know.
But it was really nice to have you on the podcast today. And we'll make sure to leave your details in the comment section of this podcast, so that if people want to reach out to you, if they have any questions, well, they can just contact you directly.
Thank you. Thanks. Amazing. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Bye.
Bye-bye.
If you like this session, please do share it with other professionals who you think will benefit from the content that we share. Also, like our page, subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you soon.